Okay, so last time I genuinely teared up, like genuine tears, was maybe 6 months ago, over the summer. I cried like 2 weeks ago because my bird, Mango, flew away.
Oh, no.
So I was kind of sad, but it wasn't like real tears. 6 months ago, over the summer, I was absolutely just in a horrible place. Not only because there was just so much, too many things going on. Like, I'm a person that, and answering the last part of the question, I rarely cry. It's unhealthy. It's genuinely unhealthy. Like, people need to cry, even if it's for nothing. Like, I was chilling with a friend yesterday, and she was talking about, I need to cry. I'm like, why? Why do you need to do that? And she's like, sometimes you just gotta let it go. And I have to learn to do that. I have to just cry, but it's just not in my culture. I was raised just to be this tough guy, men. You're a man. You don't cry. But I've been doing well. Like that before that time in the summer, I probably haven't cried in like 7, 8 years. Like, I'm serious. I'm genuinely serious. And yeah, that time it was a breakdown. I just had a breakdown, mental breakdown, and yeah, it was a breakdown. I couldn't hold that in. Like, it was for no reason at all. I just had to let it all out, and it actually helped. It really helps to do that. So
thank you for sharing that.
I got you. Yeah. R.I.P. Mango.
Sorry, Mango. R.I.P. Mango. For me, dang, I'm with you on this one. Over the summer, around like August, I was in a pretty bad place too. Like it was like I could say I was in like a depression. One of the big things was I actually got out of a relationship that kind of like it kind of hit home for me. And I'm not someone who cries. Like it's probably very unhealthy. Like I don't cry. Like, unless I'm in pain or like, you know how like y'all yawn and y'all get that little, you know, I'm like, unless it's that, I will not shed a tear. Cry. Yeah, I get that yawn cry. Besides that, like it was one night, like I was just thinking about the moment and everything that was just going on in my life, and I broke down. Like I couldn't hold that in anymore, you know. August, that was the last, like the absolutely last time that I cried. Haven't done that since. I haven't thought about that since. All in the past.
Tough summer.
Yeah, tough summer.
Mine was it like late January, early February? I still wasn't sure if I was going to return for the semester due to some financial issues, and I would get texts every single day from like my best friends, my closest friends, like, Danny, when are you coming back? And it was a question that I couldn't answer. And there's something about being here that like motivates me to do like the best and like just do so many things, because like the city has so much to offer. I remember sitting in my room and I was just like, okay, you're not gonna cry. Like, you just can't. Like, this, it's not the great time. And so we went next door to like this like room that we have. And then so my dad's like, yeah, he's like, I don't think you should go back. And so I was like, I'm not throwing in the towel. Like, I'm not giving up.
Yeah.
And like, I'm gonna go. He's like, Danny, how are you gonna go? He just kept on, how are you gonna go? He kept on asking me. He would ask me, and like my dad has a very prominent voice, and so the last time he'd asked me like 4 times. I just broke down, and it was just the fact that like I wanted to be here so bad at the time, just because I knew what I was gonna do during the semester, like the limitless potential that I had in doing projects and studying here, and I saw my mom tear up, and that's what killed me. I was just like, I want to go, but like seeing my mom cries, like saying the worst thing possible. Mm-hmm. Since then, I teared up once because I was watching Sleepless in Seattle. It's a really good, it's a really good rom-com, but like I really don't cry like that either. I'm an emotional person, but I feel like, as Riyadh said, like in my culture, like bro, get over it. Like, stop crying. Like, literally stop crying. Like, there's no need. And I'll tell myself that too. Like, I mean, recently, like, I'm not going to share it, but I shed a tear, you know? Mm-hmm. And I wiped it off. I was like, why are you crying? Like, it's not the end of the world. But that time in January was the last time I was like, you know that cry where you can't even breathe? Like, that's how I felt. And I wanted to be here so bad. And I'm here. You know, I've been here the entire semester, thankfully. But, yeah, that was genuinely, like, I felt so empty, so directionless. Like, I was like, what am I going to do now? Yeah. And I needed that. I feel there was, before that, I haven't cried in probably almost a year. And so like, when it swells up, it's about time it comes out. So that was the last time I remember crying.
Yeah, it's that build up that'll get you.
Yeah.
It'll force you to bury you. For me, I've always been an emotional guy. I've always been told how to express my feelings and the ways to cope with feelings. And I think over time, relating back to middle school till all the way up until now, being at the end of my freshman year of college, I've dealt with a lot of love, a lot of pain, and those are all things that build up into teaching you how to cope with those things. And for me, the last time I cried was actually today. Let's just say we couldn't cope with those things.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so it was it's all over this friend that we've gained to a really good friendship, and it's just one of those people that I see being a closer friend than most people, because it's someone that I trust and someone that genuinely seems like they care. And for me to find those kind of people, like a group of guys like we have here, and someone that cares, it just seems a little more special than other friendships and relationships like that. So with this person who is going to a different campus next year, Pleasantville campus, it's something that is just like, damn, like I'm not gonna be able to see that person anymore.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm not gonna be able to see that person more, but it's just gonna be a little further away.
Yeah.
And communicating through phone, I think we all know is a struggle in itself.
Yeah.
And that's something that we have to figure out also how to cope with. Just like our feelings, we have to figure out how to communicate. And communication, we know people just aren't good at it these days.
Yeah.
I can say I have my struggles with communication. We can all say we have a struggle with communication. So it's something that affected me in just to how am I going to be able to keep a friendship like this and keep it lasting, and also have the same effect that we have in person. How am I going to keep that energy flowing through conversation, through the phone, through FaceTime, through text, through a phone call, through a Zoom call, who knows? But those are all things that pile up in that overthinking and where is this going to go? Even though I'm going to see this person again, just how will I be able to keep what this friendship is? How I'll be able to keep that caringness that I have for that person? How will they keep that caringness? Will they still care? And that buildup of emotions kind of had me to the point where I didn't know how to cope with it. I needed to be around a group of guys like this. I needed to talk about it. And that's one of my biggest ways of coping with things, is just talking about it. And that did bring me a tear today. And I happened to see my boy Mikhail in the cafeteria. He opened his arms and hugged me, and that's where that tear just shed. And it was, I wouldn't say it was a low moment, because it wasn't a low moment, because it was a learning moment. And to how to cope with those things and accept those things and realize the positives that you have in life, like you are able to meet someone like that offers you that friendship that you want, like your inner circle. So I think for me that was what it was.
So let's keep talking about this for a moment, because what I'm hearing, right, we have this variance in what I'm hearing is like your emotional attachment to things. We have people who are at the table saying like, I'm told not to cry, or people who wear their hearts on their sleeves. And for men, we know this is different, because we're supposed to be these overly masculine and like hyper toxic masculinity versions of ourselves that we just aren't. None of us are those types of people, but we're all told that that's the standard. So what does hyper or toxic masculinity mean to you in terms of your relationship with mental health? Do you feel yourself as someone who struggles with being someone who's toxically masculine to hide from their emotions, or do you feel like you observe that in other people but not you?
I think I can answer that. Toxic masculinity is so interesting to observe other people go through it, because growing up I didn't know what toxic masculinity was, but I wasn't like taught not to cry. It's just I never saw other people cry. Like my male figures in my life are just only my father, and I never saw him cry. And there's one day where I saw him cry, and I was like, oh wow, like my dad actually has emotions. He cries. I can cry now. I can cry. And those moments that you share with your dad show you that he's not toxic masculine. Like he doesn't go through toxic masculinity. He just does himself. And he taught me like and I live with 4 sisters, so obviously I can't be like a douche, like a big, male guy because I live with my 4 sisters. They're all older than me, so they kind of rubbed off on me, and that taught me that you can be yourself, and at the same time you can be like a masculine figure. You can be still a confident guy, and you can still be yourself and display emotions, because genuinely displaying emotions is the complete opposite of toxic masculinity, because a guy that actually like shows what he's thinking, what he's feeling should be the more manly guy. But if that's not the case, that's not the case in the world, and I think there's a lot of teenagers just struggle, and sometimes me, I'm like, what, like, I wish I was more emotionally available, but it's just not the case, because that's not how society wants to see a successful man or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like I personally don't struggle with it, because I'm just being myself, and I don't care what other people think or how they see me as a person. So I just do myself, and whatever they think that's on them.
Yeah.
So
I feel like with going like along with that, I feel like when talking about toxic masculinity, men by nature are extremely prideful,
yeah.
and pride is the root of all evil.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like in my case, I had the same thing. I remember the first time I saw my dad cry, it was like watching Superman lose his powers. Genuinely, it's you look at him and you've never seen that foundation of your family, that rock in your family, as someone who has emotions. And so, like you, I felt like when I saw him cry, it immediately like took this weight off my shoulders, knowing that as a man, I can cry as well. And so I feel like I don't know, I just hate the fact that even though you're told to act some type of way as a man, it's okay to feel something, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to not be okay. And I feel like as this young generation of men, we should be the ones promoting this for everybody, regardless of how you represent yourself, as the fact that it's okay to not hide your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to speak up. It's okay to cry. And so I feel like as a man myself, I have to realize that like I don't really have to live up to what people think about me, because if people develop a perception about me, it's their perception. It's not who I truly am, because no one knows you better than your own self. Right. And you can have the best of intentions and people still misread them. And so I feel like it's our job to be that driving force of young men, showing our future kids, or showing kids who are younger than us, that vulnerability is a superpower in itself, to make yourself more personable, to show people who look up to you that it's okay to feel emotions, that it's okay to cry, and it's okay to feel something, because that's the greatest expression of self, showing that you care.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's
And I agree with you guys on that. I have never seen my father cry, and I like how like this is all going back to our fathers. Like we have never seen them cry, especially like then. I always say back in the olden days. I'm sorry if y'all are listening to this. I had no disrespect.
All the dads.
all the dads ever like damn. Nah, but like I know, especially back then. Gen Z, like we experience different things. We think a lot differently. Like being a man and like crying and different stuff like that, you're looked down upon, especially when you're around other men. Exactly. Like I know we had this conversation before, like being around certain people, and when we talk about very sensitive topics, like, and they're just like, damn, bro, like you're a simp.
You have to choose, right?
You have to choose.
With.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hate that, and that's one of the things like I feel is very, very toxic in a lot of men now. Like that shit's not cool.
Yeah,
first of all, and it is perfectly okay to talk about your feelings, and especially when it comes to relationships. You already like.
No.
Like I hate that there's a common like term as in like, oh, he's too nice, or like, oh, he's not like that. Like whenever he has feelings, or like he talks about certain topics, or like he's very emotional. Like you're not manly, Like I always hated that, and getting that growing up, like it just kind of sucks. So like that's how I kind of felt like developed my own sense of masculinity in myself. I do things that are considered feminine. Like I talk about certain things, I do certain things, like, but it's really not, Like, and I just hate that.
You're just being yourself.
I'm just being myself.
Yeah.
You know, I hate that's a thing now. But that's my take on that. I feel like everybody has a little toxic masculinity when it comes to certain things, but you know, it's subjective. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, feeding off that, I think guys like us, we get this stereotype of, because we care, it's something to be frowned upon.
Yeah.
It's something that's disrespected. It's something that you get called a simp for.
Yeah.
I think, and it all comes with caring. And I think caring is a really strong word nowadays, because if you care too much, you can push people away. If you care too little, you might get them closer to you. And some people love the chase. What I call the chase is when you don't care enough and someone is attracted towards that. And that's vice versa. Whether if you're chasing someone that doesn't want you, for some reason, we all know this feeling is because they don't want you, you want to try a little harder. You want to go for them a little, for the challenge. We don't really know what it is. We just know that we like it for some reason. With all the pain it brings us, we just like it.
Yeah.
And I think the most damaging thing for guys like us that genuinely do care is toxic masculinity, because we're around people, even if it's friends that we consider friends and that have toxic masculinity, and we can't have those caring conversations about them of we made a nice gesture towards someone that we actually care about, because they'll frown you upon it and they'll come at you for it just for actually caring.
Right.
And I think it's just it's so damaging for people like us, because it limits our pool of you know, talking to someone and getting to know them and them giving us a real chance to see what our potential is.
Right.
And it automatically cuts off just because we care a little more than other people,
Right.
or much more than other people. And if with that caring, it's automatically limits us to what we're capable to do and show off of who we are.
Yeah.
For the record, I see my dad cry so often. Just put a movie on. That man.
Oh, my goodness.
That man is just, oh man. I look over and he's like, remember the Titans? Game over.
Oh, no, remember the Titans.
Remember the Titans.
Oh God!
Every
Remember the
time
Titans?
I'm just looking over and he's over there trying to keep a masculine look to his body while he's sitting, and he's over there. And I just, so hearing y'all talk about that, that's the only time he even still tries to hide it. The lights are down. Wow. I think it's safe to say the surface has been scratched, right?
Yeah.
But let's go there. Let's go a little deeper. I want to put a lens on this. Other people having these conversations at their tables, whether they're round like this one or not, may not all be able to relate to this, but everyone at this table, we share something in common, and it has to do with the melanin in our skin, right? We are all different shades of a coin that is, of color.
Yeah.
And that adds something to this conversation that some people never even have to think twice about. So obviously, I, as a black man, have, a different set of experiences moving through this world. I'm sure you all have those.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to mental health, does your identity in terms of the way you look and the way you identify, in terms of your race, add another level of everything we've been talking about? Because these are important conversations, right? But now let's go there, right? As black folks, as folks of color from all different shades, what does these mental health conversations look like for us?
I think I literally just had a conversation about my stepmom about this. She told me that she was diagnosed with ADHD, and it made me think about this. Certain things are harder to depict and kind of figure out, especially because you're a person of color. I know everybody code switches, but people of color code switch like crazy. I don't know if you
Let the people know. What is code switching?
Code switching is
In case they don't know.
I'm from Tampa, Florida. When I'm in certain environments, especially around my family on my mom's side, where we're born and raised in the hood, kind of deal. So they say certain things, they do certain things. I can say, oh, you what's good, my boy? How you feeling today? That's my N-word is type stuff, right? The way I'm talking now. But if I were to go into a job interview, I'd be like, hello, my name is Mikhail Hamilton. It's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Lovely day we're having.
Put on one of these.
Right, yeah, put on a suit.
Right.
A suit's not my go-to. If I do wear a suit, I'll dress all snazzy, do something that's that stands out,
culture.
Put some culture in there,
Yeah.
But stuff like that is code switching, but when it comes to finding out mental health, like different stuff like that, it's harder to depict because we have to do that. We're not able to be ourselves because people think about us differently. You know, like in ADHD, like, you know, people are kind of rowdy. You know, like they're energetic.
Yeah.
You know, black people, especially people of color, are already depicted as like, you know, kind of like they do a lot, you know, they're rowdy, they're different stuff like that. So because we have to kind of hide that, you know, it's harder to show that off because we're people of color.
Yeah.
Let me feed off that. being someone who's biracial, white and black, I've had to deal with code switching since I was a toddler. You know, I've been brought up in a household where two different. I have a black household and a white household. So those two households were kind of formed me different. You know, it was a foundation of my life, but they were both in different ways. So it shaped me to be an individual who has different sides and complexions to themselves. And I think with being on a white side, I definitely act different around a different group of people. And then on a black side, I also act different in a group. And it's something that I hate that I have to do, in not just being who I am. Why can't I be both of those combined? But it's something that instantly triggers without me even having to know when to flip the switch. It's just, it happens like it's natural.
Like
it happens like it's natural. And it's so weird to think about because we often don't talk about code switching because it's just something that we as brothers know, but we just don't, we never have the conversation about it. So when we do, it's like, I really do this so much, even just walking through Pace. If I see, you know, it depends on how I'm going to dap up somebody. It depends if I'm going to go in for a handshake or I'm going to dap you up. What am I going to talk to you about? There's just so many different things. And I think along with mental health, being a person of color and being someone who isn't a person of color, or minority specifically, and someone who isn't a minority, specifically white people, I think that they're both diagnosed in totally different. I think that relates back to history. I mean, if you really look at history, like people of color, they just diagnose with the craziest things, and sometimes they just need someone to talk to. You know, we never like get that extra help as if a person that's not of color would get. You know, and I think that's so damaging to society as a whole, because once one person who just needs a little more help than others, they're automatically listed as crazy. They belong in a mental institution, and they're locked away the rest of their lives without ever having the chance to really branch out, because they're more scary towards the population and society as a whole. So I think it's super damaging being a person of color and seeing other people of color being affected just by judgment, you know, and never getting that extra help when we all deal with mental health. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, if you're mixed like me, it doesn't matter. We all deal with it, but it's just like, when will we also get the extra help that we need without being judged by it? So.
No, I completely agree, because I was not raised in the United States. I moved here when I was in 7th grade, and you know that's a long time. So when I got here, I thought, I was like, okay, so everybody must act the same, you know, or act the same way as they do on TV or whatever. And I was just shocked. I was just like completely, I didn't know like how to do anything, or because like, let's say in other culture you would, you know, it would be like frowned upon to look at somebody in the eyes, or like have like a, you know, look them in the eyes. In my culture it would be like disrespectful. And coming here, people just stare at you like endlessly, and they'll be like, "What's your problem, dude?" And I had to, you know, adapt, because it's been a while since 7th grade, so I had to adapt myself and basically whitewash myself.
That's a strong word right
That's
there.
a strong word.
Strong
That's a
word
strong
right
word.
there.
Whitewash myself to become normal, you know, and to get like these job interviews or whatever, or like to actually have a communication with my, you know, like white friends and black friends and Mexican friends. It would I got you. It would be like a whole new experience, because growing up, everybody was one, you know. Nobody was different from another. Everybody was one together. We were all people together. So when I came here, you know, you had to talk differently to you, and talk differently to you, and it was just such a like what? Like, what are we talking about? Like, why can't I just talk to you the same way I talk to you, the same way I talk to you? And it just, I had to adapt to myself to like, I had to basically change the way I communicate with other people to please society in a way that I would be deemed normal, or like people are sociable, you know what I'm saying? So it's just a problem that it probably happens to most minorities that come to the United States.
Yeah, I think with that, being a first-generation American has everything to do with how you perceive mental health. Being the son of 2 immigrants from Mexico and El Salvador, respectively, it's really hard because within Latino culture, there's the idea of machismo and just the fact that men are just these ignorant, barbaric people, which honestly, in many cases, they are.
Yeah.
And they're very ignorant to what's going around with them. And once again, pride has a lot to do with it. And so I feel like in having a dad who was able to correct his wrongs as a young adult and to acknowledge the fact that he couldn't raise me the same way that he was raised, just for the fact that times have changed, I feel like mental health is a lot more attainable in terms of communication and talking about these issues. But as a Latino man, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that you just don't talk about, just in fear of what everyone else is going to say around you, and to go along with the I call it shape-shifting with people, but it's just the fact that I remember me growing up in a predominantly white city, the vast contrast between going home and going to school was insanely different. Because when I speak English, like I sound like the surfer dude, you know. And then immediately when I say Daniel, I'm like, it's a switch. It's like my mom does not speak English whatsoever. My dad barely speaks English, you know. He tries his best, but Spanish is my first language, and it's one that I communicate almost the most in. But obviously, I speak more English. But it's just the fact that once I came to Pace, having to navigate the types of conversations that I do have with people, because they're very different. And so, like, in finding friends such as you guys, like people who are minorities and relate to the same issue, and can instantly, I can talk the way I usually talk to people with you guys. But then the immediately contrast when I see one of my white friends, like, hey, how are you? You know, like it's like the SpongeBob episode where he's like, hi, how are you? You know, stuff like that. But I think the biggest thing was finding a community in which I was allowed to speak about these kind of topics to the people that I can relate to, you know? Because there's a lot of conversations you can't have with a certain amount of people. So, like, for example, I found LASO, which is the Latin American student organization here at school, and just the fact that they call me Daniel or Dani, not Danny, you know? And they can actually say my last name. No, that doesn't mean anything, you know? They can actually say my last name and relate to the stuff where I'm from and speak my language, my first language. And so I feel like in being people of color and being minorities, mental health has been an issue that has not been talked about at all. It's been ignored for too long, and I feel like in finding communities like this, we're able to break that fourth wall and finally begin to talk about our experiences and how, even though our cultures are different, we're very similar in the way that we think, and we're very similar in the way that we feel, because I feel like we've gone through a lot of things the same way, just different contexts. So I feel like as minorities, our mental health journey has just begun, because it's been a conversation that has never been had before, and I feel like this is a great way to, you know, initiate that.
Okay, so for this one, I just know, don't all speak at once, because you will try to. In conversations about mental health, right, everyone thinks when you go to ask someone for advice, they're an expert all of a sudden, right? Someone always has something to say, right? They just know exactly how to, like, make sure what you're going through is just solved. What's the most controversial, like, piece of advice you've received about, like, your mental health when you've asked someone for help and you were like, what? Like, did you really just say that to me right now? Like, what's the worst it's been? Like, what's the most, you're just like, out-of-pocket thing someone has said to you when you're trying to be serious about your mental health?
Girl, you're the river of healing. I was certain that I wouldn't last. You are the answer